friends. Welcome to Ask Robin Black. I don't know if it's called Ask Robin Black or hashtag Ask Robin Black or what. Episode 7, which is freaky. I thank you for the feedback that I've been getting. This has become one of the great joys of my week. And I've been trying to figure out why I've enjoyed this so much. And I don't know exactly yet, but we'll try to figure it out. And I've gotten great feedback. That's secondary. That's incidental. It's very appreciated, but that's not what we're doing it for. But it is very nice and interesting feedback, very positive, which is cool and appreciated. But somebody said to me the other day, a good friend was giving me encouragement, and they said why they liked spending this time with me on this podcast or with us was that I was working stuff out, that I don't have all the answers to these questions, and that he enjoyed watching the process of trying to figure them out. And that is a great compliment, and it's very much what I think I like about this, is the idea for my job or for somebody's job when they do analysis or they're supposed to have expertise in something, regardless of how much they've studied and researched and grown to know, it's curiosity driven. And most things don't have a single answer. And if you think they do, you're just demonstrating how unevolved that you are when you give a simple answer. So you ask some fighter, why did this guy check a leg kick? Oh, well, when you put your weight on, you can't do that because if you think you're an expert, something we've touched on a lot, then you're done growing. If you have to be a good student. There are no teachers. There are great students that share ideas. And that's been the great joy of this, is that I don't have to give you a definitive answer. And in television, I once had a producer literally say to me, and it was one of the very first, dozen times Ramdean and I stood, it was in this sort of a yoga studio / high-performance training place down the street from the old place where Fight Network was, which was this rundown dance studio. If you don't know the history of Fight Network, we'll get into it another time, but it started off big with millions and millions of dollars, and then some people blew that on coke and hookers, essentially. I'm saying that with quotation marks, but you know what I mean, just stupid shit. And then it was bought by a number of intelligent people who knew that to make it succeed, you have to go from almost dead and blowing all its money to real basic and grow it from close to zero. And it was almost below zero because I don't know how I got into a Fight Network history tale here, but it was almost below zero because we had no credentials. We were banned from covering UFC events. They had hired me, and I was kind of a joke. I came from the music business, and there was, I wore eye makeup and tight pants and danced around and shook my ass, and people made fun of the fact that this guy wanted to be in the fight game. We couldn't get credentialed. Ramdean got kicked out of going to a UFC event to cover it, so we were at the bottom, which is a cool place to start because then you can look back and see what you've accomplished later. But so I'm standing there talking to Ramdean, and he says, Ben Henderson, how's this going to go down? And I said, well, it could happen like this. If, he does this with the wrestling, this will take place. And then, but if it's a striking battle, old school shit, the way that people used to talk, or, that made sense to talk about fighting. I know it's still done to some certain degree, but that's how fighting was discussed 7 years ago when we were talking about it. And I said, so this could happen, but if this happens, this could happen. And the producer at the time said, no. You're the expert. You have to tell them this is how it's going to go down. And I remember thinking, I understand this is television. You're my boss, and this is my job, what I'm being told to do. But that doesn't make any sense to me because that isn't what is the case. He goes, but you're the expert. The audience needs to know you're the expert. And it's like, but I'm just on a search for knowledge. And along the way, wherever we are currently down that road of knowledge, I'll bring you up to speed. If you have a full-time job and a family, you don't have time to study fighting like this, but you love it, well, I'll try to bring you up to speed with where we are so far, and then we'll keep going. And a lot of what we know, one day we'll ridicule. Oh, my God, I can't believe we used to think X. But no, that's in television. Sometimes it's loosened. All of these rules have loosened over time. But you got to be the expert. So what I love here is we're going to work these things out, and in doing so, sometimes there's knowledge pieces that we bring in, and sometimes the act of figuring out how to truly critically search for answers, you can carry that over into other things. So when you're watching that president talk about stuff and these people say this happened and these people say this is fake, and you can go in and work all that stuff out. That's what's fun about it. Anyway, so thank you for the great feedback and the people who are encouraging me to work things out in real time and understanding how much I appreciate that. I thank you. Because the belief that you are an expert is a very harmful thing, and the belief that you are a very good student and trying to be an even better student, I think, is a very powerful thing. So thank you for encouraging me. So let's get into some questions, shall we? Last week we were almost 2 hours of just me thinking things out. And a lot of people hung in for those 2 hours, and that is so fucking cool. I can't even believe it. Okay, so let's get into some things. Ed Duffy, sorry. That's a curve of the one that Chase put in front of Ed, and my vision is a little bad. Ed, thank you, man. If you had one chance to show people what MMA is about and can pick the fighters, who would they be? Okay, now I've got a second one that we attached to that from Carlos Fontana. If you were your own matchmaker, any fight from the past or present, what dream matchup would you make? Okay, let me quickly answer that one. There's just so many, it's impossible to answer. I mean, these are the greatest artists that require, when you go and you watch somebody who is a dancer or a singer or whatever, you can see the beautiful things that they do, and you can watch them anytime. And fighters need another one to do it, to really do it. You can watch a fighter fly through the air and do all kinds of stuff, and it is beautiful to watch. I once watched Anthony Pettis work the bags for maybe 4 or 5 rounds in Montreal once, and it just blew my mind. I'd never seen any martial artist move the way that he moved, and I've studied thousands of them. But in the pristine moment of them alone, you see, without the urgency created from combat and all of the relationships between the fighter and the other, they get to just freely express their skills. Watching Anthony Pettis was just something very special. So there is that. But to really see them do what they do, you need a second one. And you start thinking of every combination of all of them. And what you can get is very hard. But when I think about it, I think I already saw really at least the dream matchup that I was waiting for as I was coming up as a martial artist and a fan of fighting. And that was when Jens Pulver fought Uriah Faber. That's the fight I really wanted to see. I didn't really ever imagine that it would happen. And go back and watch. They fought twice. Go back and watch the first one. It's something fucking awesome. It really is. It really is something special. So I've seen fights like that existed. But so as far as matchmaking, that kind of thing, there's no 1 or 2 or 5 that I can come up with, honestly. They're just every one of them, the skills that a fighter can show you are, like I said, when I watch Anthony and I've watched other fighters at times just be alone and you see the skill, and it really is something special. But then when you put 2 of them together, all of those skills change in context to each other and all of the possibilities. And there's so many. I can't come up with 5. There's all of them. I just want to see them all. But as far as to show people what MMA is all about, honestly, these days, right now, and Ed followed that up. He's like, do you want somebody that grapples with somebody that specializes in fighting and in kicking or striking or whatever? And I see that, and I think there are many, many layers of that conflict that is really fascinating to me. So in the early days, striker and grappler, there was a dynamic that we would see, and it was very apparent. I want to get a hold of you and try to put you on the ground, and you want to punch me and kick me and not let me do that. And that dynamic is very apparent. But I think that dynamic happens in many ways. And now we get multi-layered dynamics, aggressor versus defensive fighter. We get, artist versus urgent fighter. We get Jorge Masvidal has a visceral, fighting man nature. That's what he's put on earth to hurt and beat and strike and and beat down other men. And I mean that in a positive way. I don't mean that in some kind of, it's just what he is, And then you've got Diego Sanchez, who's got this sort of chaotic nature, and then you've got the thinkers, you've got those guys, and you got the calm. Conor McGregor these days is now calm against Diaz, who has created that sort of mess psychologically and physically. So all of those different dynamics I think are important and beautiful. But I think if I just said, let's take something that already happened, I know it's only a few months old, and sometimes that freshness is part of it, but Cub Swanson and Doo Ho Choi, to me, you saw many of those layers. You saw Choi's learning in real-time skill, assessing and reading and finding your weakness, skill, true, beautiful, unbelievable. His mind, what he's capable of is unreal. And his physical skills. Then you saw Cub flowing, and he needed to flow in such a way that he interrupted and reset Doo Ho Choi's analysis and read and calibration. He's trying to calibrate his tools and his weapons. And Cub, the free flower, and this is outside of the beauty of the punches and the kicks and the movement and the striking and the interaction, the physical interaction. But the thought process was there's a loop that Cub Swanson kept Doo Ho Choi's mind in, and I talked to Greg Jackson about it a little bit after, and that was very much on purpose. Because once Doo Ho Choi could read everything, and then he could calibrate his weapons and process it all, it was like the Terminator, and we've seen him do that before, where his mind now knows what to do. It's there, he's read it, he's seen it, he knows its flavor and its texture, and it's time to go. And so we saw the beauty of the fight itself. Then you see the heart and desire and the toughness. Doo Ho Choi was unkillable. He couldn't be stopped. There was nothing that was going to stop him. And Cub had to just outpaint him, and outdance him. And keep, it was just an unreal fight. And there's so many layers of it. I've watched that fight. I've kept it to maybe a dozen times, and I'll kind of leave it alone now for a few months and then go back to it. I watch quite a number of fights every day just for the purpose of being in it, and I pick them sometimes at random, and then some just pop in and I'll just rewatch them. So that one, and these are beautiful performance moments. And just because there's 10 more coming up on Sunday or next week Wednesday or next Saturday or all those things doesn't mean that these things shouldn't be cherished. These are brilliant moments of true artistry, moments in time created in the lifetime build of this fighter's swim upstream to be what he is, and this one, and they intersect in this moment on this night. And even if they fight again, that will never be recreated. So these things should be cherished, and they are by some, and they at least are cataloged. Fight Pass is a beautiful thing. Not just the fights are there, but the library, the cataloging, the history, the recording of it is very, very cool. So I'm glad that's there. But we're going to see more brilliant fights tonight and in 3 weeks and in 6 months. And there will be more special things happen. We'll see breakthroughs psychologically. We'll see breakthroughs in technique. There'll be things, if we go 5 years in the future and we snapshot this moment in time and we don't see the slow development between it, those guys are they're doing voodoo. I'm sorry I'm swearing a lot today. We'll talk about that maybe later. There's something in the making the point of using that kind of language that somehow I still believe is real, but we'll work. I'll have to think about that. But if we just snapped 5 years in the future without seeing the slow growth, you'd be like, wow, these guys look so different. What they do is so different. So there's going to be a lot more of that. And there will always be more fights and more, art to be able to show people why fighting is beautiful. I've got iced coffee, so if you hear ice hit my teeth, I apologize. That will be there forever. That what happens when two men or women fight is special. There's deep meaning in it, far beyond the technical. which is something that at different times we obsess about. We become very technically oriented, and that's cool because that is a part of it. But now I'm starting to see that there are moments of where the technical looks very mechanical, and that's something we have to be careful of. And also, as we start, if it's something that matters to us and we're interested in, and we keep studying the martial arts for all of the reasons that we study it, if we shouldn't study in a mechanical way either. You know, you can if you like, but I don't want to. I want to open that up so that we learn non-linearly. We cannot just go, this is the stance, this is the distance he likes, this guy, he's better in striking than he is, but this guy's a better grappler than he is. That's a mechanical assessment, and this is not a mechanical art form. So how one checks leg kicks and how they answer with a left hook or whatever, that's real, that matters, but we can do whatever we want. I use those terms sometimes and don't intend to, and I'm trying to soften on that. You can do whatever you want. You want to look at something the same way always, please do it. That's your life. It's your perspective. You can do what you like. I want to, personally, and I think if you spend hours sitting in a podcast while a guy in a goofy shirt talks about fighting, you're probably thinking, I want to look deeper into this. There's something about fighting that makes me want to look deeper into it. There's some kind of meaning or some relevance in my life or something we can learn from it. If that's you, then we have to shatter these things. We have to take these paradigms, striker versus grappler, he's a counter fighter and he's a pressure fighter. All of these things, we have to use them, learn from them, figure out what they mean, and then shatter that paradigm and go further. Or else we'll say the same things in 20 years, and it's not the same thing. Fighting, the art is changing. Our study of it has to change, and the language that we use for it has to change. Again, I just used has to. It doesn't have to, but I want it to. And my feeling is it can. And so since it can, it should. Okay, let's answer some more questions. Okay, so I just glanced over these. I don't sit there. The open-ended nature of hanging out with you guys and just talking has been what has been a great joy for me, and it's the feedback that I get. It seems to be that people enjoy hanging out and doing that. So I don't look these over, and I don't make notes or think too much about what they might mean or what we're going to do. But I did jot one thing down on this one, because as I glanced at it, I realized I don't have my Bruce Lee book of quotes here, and this one is something that we could use some Bruce Lee quotes on. But so Ryan Thomas, do you think traditional martial arts training is still relevant in the new era of fighting? Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely relevant. Probably never more relevant. But traditional martial arts, if you go to an MMA school that is not on the front end of MMA, there's people who studied some wrestling and some boxing and some kickboxing, and they know that a low kick can lead to an underhook in this way, and on the fence we fight this way, and they have that structure. There's another book I didn't bring up here, but it's B.J. Penn's kind of Bible of fighting, but it's now 6 years old. If you study that, or if you go to one of these MMA schools, it's just like, hey, this is a double leg takedown, and then this is how you work with an underhook, and on the back we should do that's just a different form of traditional martial arts. They have redone exactly what they set out to counter. And these are doctrines, okay? So why did the MMA fighter of 2013 roll his eyes at karate or kung fu, or even Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the gi or whatever? They were like, oh God, these are old styles. These are like traditional things. That it's not based in anything. It's just, this is what they've always done, so this is what they do. Now that typical MMA school that's not on the front end has recreated that. But instead of a side kick and holding their hands down in Taekwondo and throwing a cut kick to a spinning hook kick or whatever, they've been like, we have to have like this, then we move this way, and then as we get in behind our jab, we'll get to the upper. It's just another doctrine. And it's shocking how few people, now we see a lot of people starting to see this now, but there's still people who are not. They're like, this is how you fight. Or they'll be like, well, he's got to go back to his Muay Thai. That's a doctrine. You know, oh, this guy's never experienced true Muay Thai. Muay Thai is a doctrine. Muay Thai is a structure around which you say this has to be this way. Doctrines are beaten and superseded and evolved past by people who think outside of the doctrine, or they look at the limitations of that doctrine. Boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, all of these things have limitations. Now, because they worked so long to develop them, and they were developed in combat themselves, unlike karate or kung fu or taekwondo, which was not, especially the westernized versions, were not developed in combat. So right away, certain kung fu things, hey, you didn't take into account I know how to punch. You know, and I'm not undermining kung fu or aikido or any of those, because study any kind of martial arts. It's wonderful for your life, and there's always value in it, and you're going to become stronger and smarter and more confident, and learning is great. But if any one of us are willing to look at that karate or kung fu or any of these ones, oh no, that's dated, and this is why it's old. What we were calling MMA, the 2.0, the George St-Pierre structure, is just another doctrine. It's just another doctrine. And so when we go into the gym and we do the exact same drills against the fence, this is how we work. On the ground, in the guard, we get in the thing, put the head in and do this. All of those things are just other doctrines, and they will be beaten. And they are a form of traditional martial art in their own way. So once we accept that how people train ground and pound is just a doctrine, it is just like karate. And if it's just like karate, then karate is valuable. This isn't better. It's just another overstructuring. And it's a little bit more comprehensive. There's more things. But it's still just a thing. And so one of Bruce Lee's belief was the highest form of liberation was freedom from limitation. So that's what you're seeking when you are training martial arts for yourself, but also to fight, is you're seeking freedom of limitation. So when we say you have to have the underhook and you have to put your head here and you have to do that, we are creating a new limitation. And we have to get away from that, and many are. If you look closely, now I talk about Matt Hume a lot. You watch what's going on with Demetrius. They're trying to be so far out front that you have to follow them. You have to try to figure them out, and then they're already further. They're removing limitations. Demetrius is doing all kinds of things that other people don't think exist and don't work, and he's making it work every single time. And Greg Jackson is now decentralizing that training. So instead of we all do this and this and this and this, you're seeing a huge difference in how his fighters now look. Groovy Lando doesn't really move a lot like John Jones. And not just because they're different sizes. Michelle Watterson doesn't really move like John Dodson. You know, they're similar size. I know they're different athletes. They don't move the same because he's decentralized the structuring of them and is building it around the individual. And this is the Bruce Lee quote that I did pull down because I don't have my book here, but I love it. Man, the living creature, the creating individual, is always more important than any established style or system. Okay, one more time. Man, or woman, the living creature, the creating individual, is always more important than any established style or system. So any established style or system, which is why I'm saying that traditional martial arts are great. Because all you did with mixed martial arts was create a new style or system. It was the MMA style, the mixed martial arts style, you know? And it is another style, another system. Systems are meant to be broken. And so Kung Fu was evolved out of, and then we got into this other thing, and then now we've compiled them all and said, this is how you fight MMA. It's not how you fight MMA. It's not how fighting's going to look in 10 years, which means we got to be thinking past it. And the best coaches and the best fighters are doing that right now. They have an eye on the future. Some of the best fighters in the world in 2019 or 2020 are coached by coaches you've never heard of right now. Because those are the ones, they haven't stuck roots so deep in what's happening now. They're forecasting the future. There will be some that are correct with what will be necessary to win in the new evolved 2020, the skills, the attributes, and they are reverse engineering fighters right now to have those. and there'll be other coaches. Some of the great coaches that you see now, the top 6, 7 that you see all the time, the ones we all know, some of them will still be there and some of them will not. Because some of them have to establish roots, whether they are building a system because they also know that's not forever. So some of them evolve so that it becomes longer that they'll do that, and others create online academies, other businesses, their own brand, so that because once that coaching and building fighters thing is gone, they want to have something else. Others are not investing in those things and just seeing the future and evolving. Because once you go and you build an online university or you do all of these other things, you're making web videos of showing how to do an armbar or whatever you're doing, that's time away from seeing the future. And there's some hungry guys that don't have anything to build now, and they're seeing the future, and they're reverse engineering fighters to be ready then. And many of them are using, back to the original question that I've meandered all over the place from, some of them are going back to traditional martial arts because you're drawing in other ideas. And some of those ideas, if you're going to beat this thing that we call MMA 2.0 or 3.0, the George St-Pierre prototype, understand when I say that, I'm not talking about George himself, because when you see George, maybe later this year, he'll be different than that. George knows, for us knows. George will not be that George. That George isn't what you're going to see go in the cage. But if people are building around what was the greatest fighter in 2012 to try to build him for 2018, they're done. And the way you'll beat that is things that they don't do, things that their training partners don't do. And some of these things don't exist. They're things people are going to come up with, but most things have existed already in some other form. So they'll go back and look. Man, Wing Chun, you go in and you start playing with that. I know Tony Ferguson has. There's all kinds of interesting things you can do there. And if nobody's doing it, then it has a much better chance of working because their training partners aren't doing it. It's novel, and novel is powerful. But traditional martial arts probably going to be bigger than ever and probably more relevant once you realize that what we call MMA is just another doctrine. This is the nerdy stuff that I think about a lot because it affects my job and my passion and my vocation and all of my art, because I'm not trying to, win the MMA Analyst of the Year or get a big job or make more money. I'm trying to find the truth. I'm on a lifelong journey to figure out what the truth is here. And to do that, we have to shatter some of the things that we believe now. We have to destroy, rebuild, destroy, rebuild, destroy, rebuild. And it's exciting. It's also scary. I have other friends that are like, Robin, you should go in, and they're smart people. You should go in and you should get back to this, what does he need to win? And then what can we expect his opponent to do? Put circles around the places to kick and the places to punch, show a replay and explain it, and then just move on. But I'm not going to do that. I want to know the truth. What's the truth? I don't want to know what are the things we need to say that the audience is perfectly already content with. Knockout power in both hands, it will get you a seat at the desk and make you some money. Striker versus grappler will get you a better job or more clicks on something. But it will not get you to your destination of trying to learn more. There's all these isms that we say in fighting, and they need to be shattered now. Some of them, the boxing ones, have come from the 30s and the 40s, and many of them are lies. Oh man, if he keeps throwing those shots to the body, those are going to pay dividends later on in the fight. Yeah, unless they don't. We're pushing an idea that is untrue. Now, I know that we can't talk like this, and I commentate fights, and I don't talk like this. This is where we work this shit out, you and I. But we got to figure out how to tell the truth in there. I know we're also entertaining, and there's no doubt that's important. You're watching a football game or a fight or something to be taken somewhere else, and storytelling is a part of that. But just because guys said, knockout power in both hands or, ground and pound or whatever a while back doesn't mean that's forever. New ideas will require new language, and new language will not always be accepted. Some people will resist it. Some people will choose to not like your thing, but that's okay. You want to have new ideas. It feels you won't stagnate and you won't plateau if you're constantly pushing. But that's something I've got to still think a lot about, because I do understand sometimes if you go too fast and you leave something behind, that still could have been a really cool place to explore for a while, and that's something I got to work on. I also don't worry if I could throw an idea out into the world and I move on, and then somebody else takes that idea and plays it and kind of internalizes it and uses it. The greatest thing can happen for me in my quest to influence how people watch fighting is for Brian Stan to use Flim Flam, and he did. I know Flim Flam's not a great example. It's kind of just that is probably more into the idea of having fun with a word, although we understand, or, I say, whatever. To have an idea that you mention, or an idea that you bring out, used or passed around, or some other people use it and I don't get credit, I don't care. I don't need credit. I don't need credit for anything. I just want people to enjoy fighting the way I do. That's it. And, so that's cool. I think it's going to be a rambler of a day. Okay. Now, another interesting thought here. So Chase put these two questions together also because, again, I'm finding these questions are ways to open a doorway to thinking out an idea. And sometimes we come to a resolution, and other times we realize it's okay to not. I think a big thing we're seeing out in the world all the time, a huge thing, is there are two sides. You see it in politics a lot, but you see it in a lot of different things. There are two sides, and when you watch them, if you didn't have any knowledge about what the topic was and didn't have an opinion about what it was, you would see that they're identical. And I know Eddie Bravo and Brian Callen, when I was on the Joe Rogan show, we were a little drunk and stuff, and they were disagreeing on Callen. It has very science-based, as do I, and as do a lot of people, evidence-based truths. And I agree with his truths. Evidence, truth. There is such a thing as real. There is such a thing as truth. There is such a thing as expertise. Science polices itself over time, and it is happy to be wrong. It has no romantic relationship with any belief. It has all of the evidence for thousands of years of human research, goes to a point, and everybody will study and try to prove that wrong for their whole lifetime. Some people spend their whole lifetime trying to prove one thing wrong. Lifetime. And it gets reproven and reproven and reproven and reproven and reproven forever. And that's where Brian is. That's where I happen to be. And that's where I believe it's better for humanity to be. Eddie, who I adore and I just think is brilliant. And his mind, the ability to think, to be hyper-skeptical, is why 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu exists. His drive to say, I will not believe that this is so, and there can be something else is why 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu exists. People are like, that doesn't work. He's like, yeah, yes, it does, and I'll show you. Well, that doesn't work unless you what? Spend 10,000 hours working on it? Okay, I will. Okay, Jiu-Jitsu is a doctrine. And Eddie was not having it. And that's why he has a whole different system, and it's real, and it's beautiful. And I admire him a huge amount for that. But the dude also fucking believes that they didn't land on the moon, And that's that same type of thinking that makes him think that. The difference is jiu-jitsu was a doctrine. Science is science. Science is real. And I don't want this to start a conversation about that. The fact that we live in a world right now that doesn't understand what evidence, science, and reality is spooky. But now, so despite the fact, I tried to remove myself from the fact that I believe pretty much exactly what Brian Callen believes about evidence and truth. And Eddie has been convinced. He has had a bunch of people, a bunch of websites and different stuff who are not to be trusted tell him that science and reality is not to be trusted, and that they are to be trusted, and he believes them. He should be just as skeptical of them. He should be just as skeptical of all of his sites that say, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. It's like, well, why? What if you're lying? So maybe one day he will. Anyways, that wasn't my point. My point was, in watching them, if I didn't have the information, what I would see, or if I didn't have a preference or a belief with one, side, what I would see is two people who are 100% sure they are correct, 100% sure, based on their lifetime of, and I said indoctrination, and Brian didn't like that, and I think maybe that's not right, because science is not an indoctrination. In fact, it's the opposite. It's evidence-based. So that was a misuse that kind of threw off my point. But what you see is two people based on a lifetime of belief structure being created, unwilling to be influenced by the other. So there's a pointless discussion, literally pointless. It's scary because Eddie is our friend, and you're sitting, Joe, everybody else there knows him 1,000 times better than I do, but I admire him a great deal. And you're sitting there, that's your friend, and you're worried about him because someone, almost Scientology-like, or a number of people who build their own world in which truth is not truth, has convinced him, and he lives in a reality where he is sure that all the shit we know that's real, that it's all humankind, all study and research, and everything has led to that, is undermined because people tell him you can't trust the message tellers. Anyways, I don't know how the fuck I got here. But Chase is just laughing hysterically. Anyways, when you watch sometimes, there's a disconnect. Everybody believes they are correct. Everybody. And I watch it here. There's a guy here, I'm going to call him Adam because his name begins with an A, and another guy who I'm going to call Nevin because his name begins with an N. And one guy is 100, he has Fox News on all day. And Fox News is not inherently bad, but it has a message. That message is reinforced over and over and over and over and over again. So this guy has a belief system that is unshakable. And the other guy believes the opposite things. And I watch them discuss it, and then they leave. And both of them walk away going, I can't believe how stupid that guy is. Two highly intelligent people. Highly intelligent, very, very good people. But their belief system has been reinforced over and 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 over forever. And it is unthinkable that guy, like, why can he not understand? Trump is a good man, or the other guys, why can he not, and it's crazy. But so, I don't know how the hell I ended up there. But it was, the question is about belief. So the question is about belief and truth. And the thing is, these two highly intelligent people, highly intelligent, and they walk away and they think the other one's a complete idiot. And they are both smart. And they are both. And the one thing neither one will see is that they have been, their belief, that whatever it is they believe, has been controlled and protected with layers and layers and layers of protection to not allow themselves to be changed. So it was impossible. And you watch this every single day. And every day. You see it. The more you're looking for it, and don't look for it because it's freaky, but you will see it. If instead of sitting there and going, say you're conservative, I don't know why we're talking about politics, and we could apply this to anything. We can apply this to anything. It doesn't have to be politics. But you're one side, and how is 50% of the world so stupid? How are 50% of people, how can they be so stupid? They don't understand. How can they not believe that this WikiLeaks guy is a traitor and should be put to death? And the other guy, how can these people not understand that if the government is doing bad things, that this guy it should be presented to the public. The public needs to know. Both of them are highly intelligent, but their beliefs, each one thinks that 50% of the population are complete idiots. And the other 50% thinks the other 50% of the population are complete idiots. How is this possible? How is this possible? Is literally 50%, they're either right, and half of North America, we live in Canada, it's pretty much the same thing, half of they're right and all these people are idiots. Half of the population is idiots, or they're right and half of the population are idiots. That's so bizarre. Is one of them right? They're not. Neither one is right. But anyway, so I don't know. I apologize. We probably lost some people there, and I don't blame you. I hope you come back one day. So this question is where we'll see a loose connection to this. Does a loss benefit a fighter and motivate them more than when they're an undefeated fighter or than, a different undefeated fighter? And the other question, Akasamba, who, thank you, that guy sends in some pretty great questions, and I really appreciate them. Could appealing a decision be more harmful to the career than the decision itself? Is it better to refocus on the next fight? So why did I meander off into a discussion of people sort of, being certain the other one is so wrong? Good question. I'm not exactly 100% sure how I ended up that far down that one. But perception is a big thing here. So let's try to work this out. You lose a decision, and I have observed, my short answer to this is, I have observed myself, people get a bad decision, a bad one, like there's no doubt they won. And they're in like a different state where the kid from that state gets it, and move on. Move on. There are things beyond your control, and focusing on that's result-oriented, being only about the result. Go back and study the fight. What did we do? What did we learn? Where do we go from here? How do we get better? What can we improve on? Well, now we are 5-1 instead of 5-0. Just forget about it. Because there's a certain amount, and this is somewhere where I meandered off into this political nonsense. There's somewhere in there that you cannot control the scenario. And so don't be so romantically attached to the result. The result is what it is. You cannot control it. You could spend a whole bunch of time writing up something, then you spend that time sending it to a thing, and these guys are corrupt. And I'm not saying all people are, but this is your reaction. Like, these judges or this commission or this government or whatever is corrupt. Okay. So what? Accept that reality. Now, if you believe, first of all, I was going to say, if you believe that the judgment against you that the judges screwed you or the commission screwed you, you can believe that. But assess the situation. How much time and effort and focus is it going to really require to fight this? And if you think they're corrupt, is it going to make sense? You're going to have this entirely frustrated, tough thing. Now, I'm not saying don't stand up for what's right, but look at it if it's possible. Righteous indignation on something, and this applies to, Holly Holm too, who I'm an enormous fan of. The idea, so complaining, we call it. We're complaining. That's somehow where I got to the political thing, and Eddie and Brian. If we complain, that sounds bad. But what complaining sometimes is righteous indignation. The word righteous is in there. It's because it's righteous. Holly got punched after the bell. That's unreasonable. But can we do anything about it? If we accept the reality that can happen to us, then we work within that reality. The truth is, the coach of the guy whichever guy now, just got a bad decision against him. If you asked that coach 5 years earlier, how are these judges? How are the judges in fighting? So they'd be like, oh man, some of them are terrible. Have you ever seen a bad result where a guy got screwed? Oh yeah, I see it all the time. Okay, so that's a thing. That's a reality. So accept it and move on. You have to. And so does a loss benefit a fighter and motivate them more than an undefeated fighter? And this one I think is complicated, but it's connected. A loss doesn't have a meaning. It has the meaning you give it. There are people, there's a philosophy people use called invest in failure. They invest in failure. They try things with full commitment, unafraid that they may fail, and commit all the way through. And failure becomes a part of growth. And losing can become a part of growth. Now, losing, when you assign meaning to things, oh my God, I lost, I'm not going to get in the UFC now. What if I lose another time? What did I do wrong? That was unfair. If you get into that, you're adding all this meaning there. That meaning isn't there. Or if you say, oh man, I lost, but I've never been more motivated. You've added meaning there. That one may be positive for you. It may not. Or you may be wrongly motivated, or the motivation may drive you to do things. There's no meaning in almost anything. And I think I've told this story before, but it's an old parable about a guy and his horse runs away, and the townspeople come up to him and they say, we're so sorry about your bad news. And he says, what bad news? And they said, well, your horse ran away. Well, it could be good news, it could be bad news, who knows? And 3 days later, his horse comes and it's found 3 wild horses and it's leading them. And the horse comes there and he puts the fence around. He's got 4 horses. And the townspeople say, hey, we're very excited to hear about your good news. And he says, what good news? And I said, well, you had yesterday you had no horses and now you have 4. He goes, well, that could be good news. That could be bad news. Who knows? I'm going to try to tell this quickly. So then the next day his son is trying to tame one of these wild horses and the horse jumps up and it hits him and he falls down and it shatters his leg. And it's his only son and the only person he has to help him and stuff. And the kid is in there and his leg is up and it's in traction. Townspeople say, wow, we're so sorry to hear about your bad news. I said, what bad news? And they're like sick of this guy by this point. And then, he's like, it could be good news. Who knows? They think he's insane. Your son is badly injured. And the next day the draft comes to town and they're taking the young man off to die in the war. And they can't take him because he's injured. And the townspeople say, wow, so happy to hear about your good news. Well, it could be good news. It could be bad news. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? I know that's a long meandering, but it's an old parable or fable. And it's true. It's fucking true. If you don't break your leg, you go to war. If you never lost that fight, you may never have learned the lesson of losing that fight. Or you may have had to fight the next guy who you might have got injured fighting because he was another level. You may have won something by accident, and that's great, but now you have to fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And what happens in that? You're not ready. Wouldn't it have been better if you had lost 3 more times? All of that. The meaning of anything that happens in your life is the meaning that you assign it. And you can assign it any meaning that you like. Anything. And the best meaning is something based in reality and some amount of optimism. You get into a conflict at work, something happens. That outcome is the outcome that it is. You may never, you think of the ways that if you have a wife or a girlfriend or a husband or a boyfriend or whatever, you think of all the things that could have happened and you never met them. You would have never met them. There's people you meet in a daytime that you would have never met had you won that fight. There's an injury that could have happened had you won that fight. You go on with your life. You accept the reality of where you are. You look at it from there, and this is our new starting point. We grow and we go from there. Businesses end all the time. Jobs, relationships, fights are won and lost. All of these things are going to happen in your life. They've happened in everyone's life since the beginning of time. So the people whose lives get better got some value out of it. Or at least it didn't deter them in some way. You just fucking go on. You go on. You're sad. It sucks to lose. It's the worst thing in the world. It's so painful. And that level of failure and that knowledge that you had this idea that you would be coming through, and it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. But then you move on, and you take what you can take from it, and you learn, and you move forward. So that's a tough one to answer, and there is no answer. And we'll say there's maybe an answer when we have less time, and it's the job of television to bring you an answer. This guy will bounce back from this, he'll be better than ever. You can say that. And a lot of what's said in short chunks on television about politics or fighting or sports or the weather or whatever is short, digestible chunks, which maybe shapes the way that we think. And maybe that's why podcasts are interesting, Because we don't have to say, oh, man, when these guys come back from a loss, it motivates them like crazy. Some of them it does. And other ones, it pops them. So these things are, it's again, I'm going to try to finish this one off. Apologize for the weird observations about politics. Probably unnecessary in this environment, but at the same time, I'm not really censoring anything we do here. We're just kind of doing it. But I'm going to bring this conversation back and try to reset it a little bit. By how does the loss benefit you? Could appealing a decision be more harmful than the decision itself? We go back to what we said in the second question, Bruce Lee's quote. Man, the living creature, the creating individual is always more important than the established style or system. And who you are and how you create and how you see and how you express yourself and and the road that you set for yourself is more important than the win or the loss. And each individual will handle it differently. You'll take 1,000 fighters or 1,000 people and you give them failure, and some of them it'll be the greatest thing that ever happened to them. And a lot, it will be good, and some will be very bad. And some, a lot of the things they have is based on, a house of cards of instability, of not strong foundations of ideas, it can collapse the whole thing. So it really depends on the person. Okay, let's move on. Well, fresh start. Can you analyze the line between confidence and delusion? Any benefit to self-belief not rooted in evidence? I think there was some other thing here I wanted to bring into that. How is it different for you to watch? No. Can you fight Fedor tonight? So, can you analyze the line between confidence and delusion? Any benefit to self-belief not rooted in evidence? And would I fight Fedor tonight? This was last night when Matt Mitrione fell ill and Fedor needed a fight. I will not fight Fedor tonight because I'm rooted in some amount of reality. And I could die, probably would die. And I'm not willing to die in a Bellator cage fighting Fedor Emelianenko. I'm just not. I have no possibility of defeating Fedor. There is no scenario in which I can come out of there okay and uninjured. And no, so I will not. Because that is, I do not have that delusion. And so self-belief not rooted in evidence, I think is very dangerous. I think it's very, very dangerous. Now, I really like the question because we could very easily say any benefit to self-belief not rooted in evidence. Sure, yeah. Or we can say, no, that's not real. The truth is, like many things, if we were to say absolutely not, you cannot, there's no benefit to just thinking you can beat Fedor. There will be an exception or two. Let's say there's 1,000 people who don't know how to fight, and one by one they fight BJ Penn. 2 of them could win in 1,000. And then we would point to those 2 and say, see, self-belief not rooted in evidence, it can be powerful. Because there is the freak chance that if you just thought, I'm just going to swing as hard as I can, and I'm going to swing for Travis Brown's chin and try to hit him, and I'm going to knock him out. Take 1,000 guys, 1 or 2 of them could happen. But in almost every case, what's going to happen is you are going to suddenly be confronted with reality, because reality doesn't care if you believe it or not. If you are fighting Ben Henderson and you are a blue belt in jiu-jitsu who has a lot of confidence and a lot of swagger, and you just know you can beat him, and you boxed for a year, you're going to get killed. You're going to get murdered because the reality is going to hit you in there. Once you suddenly find you can't hit him, then it's all going to start to fall apart. Hey, this isn't. We called a fight TKO. And I do not remember the guy's name, and I'm glad. I don't want to point him out. And the individual personally, it's him as a human being. There's nothing he did wrong. He just ended up down a road of weird self-belief. But he had a nickname. He had an attitude. He had the swagger on his way out. He got head kicked unconscious in his first fight. You can't be truly confident in your first fight. You could have a natural self-confidence. You could feel confident in the work that you've done. You could feel confident in the skills that you've developed. You could feel confident you're as prepared as possible. But you cannot be confident that you are going to perform well in a fight, or you can't be confident you're going to win the fight because you don't have any evidence. You don't have any knowledge of this. You don't have any truth, anything to base it on. So instead, if you have I know I'm going to win, I just know it, that can be dangerous. But what can be powerful is I know how hard I worked. I know how much I prepared. I know that, I did the work. I've never been fitter. I've never been stronger. I've never been more rested and more focused. And I'm going to go in and get the best out of myself. That's really powerful. That doesn't come crashing down when things get hard. That you are then go back to that well as things get hard. But confidence is based in truth. Confidence is based in performance. You're not confident. You don't perform well because you're confident. You're confident because you've been performing well. I think I nailed that one, actually. You are not, maybe I've heard that somewhere before, so I don't want to take credit. You will not perform well because you're confident. You will be confident you can be confident if you have been performing well. And confidence is based in evidence, and confidence is based in reality, and true confidence is based in the work. Confidence in the work. Artificial confidence is just something you draw out of the sky. You just, man, nobody can beat me. I'm the best. What does that mean? That's not a thing. That's faith. And faith, by definition, is the belief in something for which there is no evidence. That's what faith is. You got to have faith. Faith is, by definition, the belief in something for which there is no evidence. And faith will not help you in a fight. Oh, actually, I shouldn't say that because, well, you got Vitor, Weidman, and Yoel Romero. They all have faith, that it is their faith, their religious faith in their case, but there's all different types of faith, is what was going to get them in there. Well, Vitor was then beaten by Weidman. They both had faith. Weidman was then beaten by Yoel. They both had faith. Everybody had faith. So does faith sometimes help buoy you up? Sure, lots of things can do that. But that's not the same as having a true, confident knowledge in your ability to perform. But it's a very interesting thing. All of this these ideas will continue to grow. We will never stop and say, wow, wasn't that great back in 2017 when we figured out the truths of everything about fighting? So let's not be ridiculous, which is why, and I understand in the context of writing a blog or doing a podcast or talking on television, there are certain parameters where we have to, like that guy told me, you're the expert and you need to say who's going to win this fight. I mean, sometimes we'll have to do that. But anybody, if you ever read or hear somebody talking and they consistently talk to you as if they have a level of knowledge about the martial arts, especially if they've, if Michael Bisping or George St-Pierre goes to tell you something about fighting and what happens, and especially the psychological stuff, listen to them. Somebody who's never actually done it and is observing other people or gathering other pieces of information that they've heard, if they tell you authoritatively this is how, you have to stop reading them or listening to them. You're not going to these people, and I will include myself wholeheartedly in this conversation. You're not going to people like me to tell you facts, hopefully. You're coming to people who talk about the martial arts and study them to give you ideas, to open doors for you, to open doors of, oh, I never really thought about that. Well, I wonder what that, don't, and this will go back to Eddie and Brian. If you're so sure that you're right, you have no ability to learn. You have to be flexible. I think I just connected that. Now, the flexibility, you're flexible when you're doing the martial arts. You stretch your legs out and you bend and you do the splits and you build the flexibility of your body, the physical flexibility. And you have to be flexible in your ideas. And that's what we don't see when two people are arguing with each other. Neither one is willing to be flexible. Neither one can allow the possibility that there may be something to what the other one is saying. It's just impossible. We will not ever take in a little bit of their ideas. And the martial arts and the flexibility of learning and the flexibility of training in the martial arts and the flexibility of learning and sharing the ideas, you have to be flexible. And so if I tell you that a right hand, the hardest right punch can be thrown X, Y, and Z, I will now have no flexibility to be able to learn how to throw a harder punch. If I tell you that the way to handle somebody who's trying to take me down is A, B, C, D, and E, and I am not flexible, and I'm telling you this is what this is, and this is how this fight went down, and this is what Nate Diaz did, and this is why, sometimes you'll get that. And sometimes, again, I'm making the, I'm acknowledging the reality that sometimes your boss or the construct tells you should do it that way. But the truth is, if we think we know everything about fighting in 2017, then we'll be the dumbest people talking about fighting in 2030. We're going to say the same things. All these inflexible ideas that those two guys have when they argue with each other and you observe, and neither one ever willing to do it, those are doctrines too. Somehow this is all connecting, as stupid as my conversation about politics felt. And that's what we're hoping to sometimes do, is connect it. The doctrines of martial arts don't allow you to learn necessarily, adapt, or learn new things. The doctrines of discussion, science, and these conspiracy theories are two different political views. Their doctrines, the dogma, the indoctrination of that doesn't allow you to be flexible. Your goal is to be different in 5 years than you are now, not to defend your beliefs for the next 5 years. It can't be. It can't be. You can't know everything that you're ever going to know now. That's sad. That is so sad. Like, think of that. 10, 15 years from now, everything, oh, thank God, everything I knew back then 15 years ago, I was right. That's no way to live your life. It doesn't make any sense. We're hoping to be way smarter. We're hoping to laugh at what we thought 10 years ago. Oh, wow. Remember back when we thought this? Oh, look how much has changed. Look how much more enlightened we are. Or look, wow, we thought that, and turns out, nah, that's awesome. That's amazing. And you have to have that. It's just, that's what living is learning more stuff as you go and getting new ideas and seeing how little you knew 10 years ago. That's exciting. Don't you hope 10 years from now you look back at this conversation and go, wow, I can't believe that. What that guy was saying, he seems a little smarter now, and I can't believe my response to that, I'm way smarter now. We got to do that. I'm getting all over the place. There is a limit to the meandering. I know that the open-ended, free form of thinking is really, it's pleasant. I like it. I know people have laughed and enjoyed chatting or having this open-ended chat as it meanders, but there's got to be limits. I'm not saying I'm going to put boundaries on open, free-minded thinking, but at the same time, do we really want to talk the entire time about some topic that I meander to? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that yet. Okay. Are you already thinking for a possible GSP versus Bisping breakdown? Yeah. Yeah, I'm always, literally, as soon as something comes up, and it's not even necessarily a matchup. Sometimes it's like some other idea. Sometimes it's some other thing unrelated to fighting. I'm always, this is my deepest curiosity. So Bisping and GSP, the challenge is, I would take that one. My knee-jerk reaction is I would take that one and I would explore ideas other than how they match up. Because, again, I could just say George's double leg takedown is this, but Mike's ability to defend is this. George likes that Superman jab, and I understand that there's value in that. I understand that there's people that's comfortable because we've seen it, we understand it, and I understand that it might be fairly stabilizing for my job. Oh, that's Robin. He does that thing. This guy does this. Oh, you looked at that. Might give me different or better work. I make more money. But it's a lie. George isn't that guy. He's not at all that guy. I know he's not. I know what he's been working on, and I don't have any footage of it to show you. I know he doesn't think that way. I know and I know that Mike is different, and I know that Mike will fight this fight different, and I know, so there's trying to show a matchup of what George looked like 5 years ago against some of Mike's greatest moments is just not true. It's just, and sitting there and trying to say, how do you beat George St-Pierre? Well, you can write an article of that or do a breakdown of that, but that's not who he is. That's so limited. Like, everything is always changing. So what we're hoping, that what you get really good at doing over time, or you develop it like a muscle, is anticipating change. This is relevant in your life. If you do something, say you work in television, well, you need some people in there that understand how television is shrinking and going away, and how the web and other platforms are growing, and anticipate what they'll be in 3 years when TV will have shrunk this much. Where will this be, and how do you have to do that? If you can allot 20%, 10, 20% of your work thinking, 10 is probably more realistic, to studying the future of your business. You can do it with your entertainment. You can do it with, people do it with their investment in buying houses. People do it with money. If you can anticipate the future a little bit. Where is things going? You won't always be right. In fact, you'll often be wrong, but in the course of doing it, you will learn valuable things. Where is this going? When you buy a house, do you buy it without ever going, well, what's the market going to be like in 5 years when I've barely paid down anything on this? Oh, will the house go down in value? Oh, I can't buy a house. I mean, it applies to everything. It's mandatory, especially now. The world is changing faster than it has ever in human history. Most of the things we do with most of our time, almost all day, a lot of them didn't even exist 15 years ago. It's entirely different. When I was a kid, I was born in 1969. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 10, 11. I've lived in 6 decades. Is that crazy? I'm 47 years old, but because I dipped my toe in the first one and I'm already into the 5th, I've lived in 6 decades. And in that time, the shit has changed so much. When my dad was a kid, all their families, he was a farmer in Manitoba, all the families in the neighborhood would come over, and if they had wine or whatever, and they would listen to the radio. One radio. That's my dad, my father. I don't even have children yet. All the families would come by, and they would huddle around the radio. And then they would hang out, and if they had food or snacks or whatever, they weren't very wealthy, my father. They were farmers in Manitoba. They listened to the radio. Then when I was a kid, they had we had a black and white TV that you physically did. Then we were the first kids in our town, because we had a trap line. My father taught us to trap, and we trapped a lynx. And so we were the first kids in our town to have an Atari. And we had a Pong before that. Then we were the first family to have a computer. We had a Commodore VIC-20. Then I had cell phones in my life in the 90s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When we were children, we just dreamed of what is the year 2000 going to be like. And one thing we were sure of was when you talked to people, you would see them. So we knew that was coming. But we also were pretty sure there would be flying cars. And currently there are none. So we didn't get it all right. But I never thought one day past 2001 when I was a kid. 2000. That's going to be insane. It changes so unbelievably fast. And a lot of those farmers, now farming isn't an industry that makes the money. This always happens. This has always happened. This happened forever. Things change. Everything changes. So you have to anticipate change. And so I'm not just saying that GSP versus Bisping cannot be broken down in reality with truth about the matchup because they changed. I don't just tell you that because fighting is the coolest thing in the world and I'm obsessed with it. I tell you that because that applies to everything. There are people who tell me that TV has to be made X, Y, and Z because it's been made that way for 20 years. But the audience is different. What people want is different. What they get is different. They watch the internet. And yet, there are people in school right now being taught to make TV the way it was made in the 80s. That's insanity. It's literally a type of insanity. And when you have conversations with people, hey, no fighter will be able to become a high-level fighter when they're 27. Someone will go, well, Francis Ngannou, that's fucking 4 years ago. The whole world is different. When you use examples of things, you go, well, Michael Jordan did it. Basketball wasn't the same then. The world is so different every week, month, and year, and now more than ever. And you have to know that. You have to understand that you are in a river of constant change. And if you think you have it figured out, you're wrong. But once you figure out how to be able to be more flexible, to adapt and adjust and pivot, your life goes a lot smoother. So anyways, I wrote next to GSP versus Bisping, I wrote fast because I was literally just going to go, oh man, I'm really excited. But then I got it off on that tangent about change. But man, as soon as that's why history is so important, because you look at all these cycles of change that constantly happen, and you realize that we are not in anything stable. We're in constant change. And then you get good at being in constant change, and most people aren't. And then all of a sudden, you can do a lot of stuff. Your life becomes smoother. Because we live in a state of constant change. Society is in a constant change. Fighting and your job and my job and everything is changing all the time. But most people don't change very easily. And if you get good at that, all of a sudden you do know how to invest your money in a certain way if you have even $100. You do know how to get better at your job and figure out, well, where's my job going to be in 4 years? And how do I become the best in 4 years? Trying to do that will probably make me pretty good now while I'm doing that. Oh, cool. It's everything. That's a big one. That's understanding that we're in a constant state of change and getting better at living in a world that's in a constant state of change is a really powerful thing. So is whiskey and tacos. As Brent says, you're always talking about whiskey and tacos, so what's your favorite? Very good question. I go to this place down, Chase goes there all the time too, on Queen Street in Toronto called Grand Electric. Somehow they just nailed everything. And I don't really have a favorite restaurant. There's 4 or 5 that occasionally when you go out, you go to. And if you had, if you did have $100 and you were going with your wife, you'd go here. But if you only had 50, you'd go here. And if you, only had 10, you'd go here. So there's all different things. But I go there a lot. We were there last night. I was there with my friends John and Jen, who I watch fights with, and Peter and Lorraine, who live in my building and are close friends, and John's cousins. And their fish tacos are unreal. I like the chicken. All their tacos are good. And honestly, whiskey, I like to sip whiskey with tacos, which is weird because tequila goes well with tacos. But they always have a $5 whiskey shot on, so I just get whatever they have. My buddy Evan Boris, who is currently out in Halifax with Alex Ricci. They're fighting tonight. Alex is. Evan is third or in the corner. Angelo Reyes is Alex's coach down in Vegas. Evan, who has worked with him a lot in the past, is there as sort of an emotional support, mimic the opponent in warm-ups, that kind of thing. Evan is a big Scotch guy, as is Glennie Mack, our producer here, senior producer, who is a stud and a great guy. Glenn's a great guy. A big reason that we have the flexibility that we have here is Glenn early on made one of his priorities to put some trust in us and let us explore with television. So Glenn loves Scotch and Evan loves Scotch. And I trust those guys to give me Scotch recommendations. Also, David Mullins is a Scotch guy. So I trust them. My expertise is fighting. I trust people to recommend wine to me. Brian Callen brought a nice wine to Joe's thing. I trust people to recommend things like that to me. So I drink the $5 whiskey shot with my tacos at Grand Electric. If you're ever in Toronto, that's my favorite taco. And I've eaten tacos in a lot of places because I love tacos, but they do something pretty good there. Okay. So I just had another thought, actually. I was talking about whiskey and tacos. So every now and again,
you pause and you go, why are these tacos so good? Is there one answer, or is it something about, is it the sauce? Is it everything? And and you kind of, every now and again, you can allow yourself to be a little bit inspired by things. A nice scotch. You don't just drink a nice scotch. When I was out with Evan and Glenn the other day, you don't just drink a nice scotch. As you taste it, you're sampling it, you're smelling it, you're looking, it's complex. It's very complex, and that complicated nature is so interesting. And you can see that in everything. You can see that in just about everything, everywhere you look. And it's really inspiring because it gets your brain working in different ways. You go look at art, it's complex. And fighting is definitely that. And when I go and I had scotch with a couple different sips of scotch with those guys, and they had a flight of little half ounces, and you compare them, and they're all so different. And if you really wanted to go down that road, assuming you didn't gulp too much of it, same thing with wine tasters. I don't even think drink the wine, do they, Chase? They spit it out. But I think people, when they go out and enjoy a bunch of different wines. So obviously alcohol can be a dangerous thing, so you don't want to go too far down that. But people do it with food. They do it with lots of things. You can go further and further into the study. And the more you know, the more fascinating it becomes. And that's fighting. And that's what my approach to fighting is. That's what my study of fighting is. That's what I'm trying to share. If in my perfect world, whether I was successful or not, I have said many times, I want to commentate the UFC one day. Macau on Fight Pass, fine. That's where you start. More than happy. But even if that never truly happened and my goal was not achieved, the real big picture world goal is that in 10 years, people see and discuss fighting that way. The way that, not everybody, some people just love wine. Hey, how's the wine? It's great. It's red. It's sour. Great. Cool. Did you like it? Loved it. Cool. Some people watch fighting that way. Oh, yeah, man, it was just big knockouts. Was it great? Oh, yeah, it was awesome. But other people want to look at it this way. And if that is how a section of the world studies fighting in 10 years, and I played a role, even if I don't have any credit, but because I spoke about it a certain way, other people spoke about it a certain way, or me and others. And then, it inspires Brian Stan to commentate a little differently. And then these types of conversations open doors. And nobody ever says, Robin, you were one of the guys who, I don't care. I really don't. The goal is that one day, if we are looking 20 years in the future, or even 10 years in the future, or even 5 years in the future, because I really feel like this appreciation of the martial arts as a true art form, this is starting to take root pretty solid. So I think 5 years is very realistic. We're discussing the art the way that we discuss wine and tacos. And let me tell you one other thing. There were two interesting things I did this week in the last few days. One was I got a bunch more tattoo work done. So it's this dragon. Can you see it, Chase? So it's getting colored in. And my wife's name was there in a heart, and it's going to become the pearl of the dragon. So this guy, Bill Baker, I'm mentioning him. He probably wouldn't want me to. Not because he does give me friend prices, but not because he sponsored me or anything like that. I'm mentioning it because he's a fucking amazing artist, and I love spending time with him. So it hurts to get tattooed, but I spend time with this guy, and he's very intelligent, and he's very philosophical, and we have these great conversations. But the art itself, he uses an old school machine. So at one time he has had companies that build the machines and acquire the needles from China and develop the color and everything. So he uses the old school machine. There's a new machine, and when you look around, there's a lot of beautiful tattoos. And there's something, and I'm not being critical, it's just an observation, an artistic observation, but they are very literal. Like whatever is on the wall, I can take and put on you, and it's perfect. There's a perfection. Because the new machines came from a development that happened in the machines of tattooing, like makeup. They were quieter, and they're more perfect. There's not an imperfection to them. And so they have they're flawless, which is beautiful, but it's different. And so Bill's, and there are many others, old school machine guys, lots of them. This is perfect, and he's done amazing work on me, but it's a human perfect. There's a there's a battle that he is doing for control of a machine that is not automatically perfect. And the other ones, they literally, there's no battle, there's no struggle. And there's a struggle in there. And there's something about them when I see them that they really speak to me. There's a real old school element. It's still perfect. I mean, it's human perfect. I'll show you another day, but the Bruce Lee tattoos that he's given me, like they look perfect. But then when you look up close, there's a struggle for him to control the art. And I think that struggle is a part of why I like it so much. So, the same couple of days, I went down and I got leather pants made, which is pretty fucking cool. I've never owned leather pants. I sung in a rock band and I've never owned leather pants. I had leather chaps once. So I went to this store and I walked in and I immediately was blown away. Just fucking blown away. It's called Call and Response. Same thing. I paid retail. They didn't ask me, but they are on Instagram, I think as Call and Response. But they didn't ask me to talk about it. I'm talking about it because I was moved by the art. The work in there is unreal. And you don't know why it's so good. And there's something later among the things, and so I started talking to the artists because I'm interested in people's process and how art is made and different things. So I'd been around Bill, and I have been for a long time. So I've gathered a lot of his thoughts and ideas, and it's really fascinating. And so I met these two women that work there. And one makes coats, and the other makes pants. And it's not all leather, but a lot, like a huge 90% maybe. The work is beautiful. And so talking to them a while, I brought out of them different things. And they had mentioned that they made a lot of clothes for Prince, that he was a very close friend, and he had just passed away. And they gave me a jacket that they had been making for Prince. I paid for it, but they had it stashed and before he passed away. So it's really cool. It's silver. It's really, really cool. But that's not the part of the story. But when you look around, I suddenly realized that I saw Prince's aesthetic everywhere. And then I realized, no, I saw their aesthetic on Prince. It was an interesting connection of artist, art. That was Prince's aesthetic everywhere. But no, that's their aesthetic. And so where did that form? Which is fascinating. But I think where I was going with this is I'm looking at this jacket. So I got leather pants made because of the awards show thing next week, the World MMA Awards. I wanted to look good because I started getting excited about it. I was kind of like, oh, that's cool. It's a compliment, I'm not going to win. But that's cool. But as it's gotten closer, I've found that I was actually very excited to go to it. Despite the fact that mathematically I would assume I have almost no chance of winning against people with 1.5 million Twitter followers who are brilliant. But that's not the point. I was like, this is going to be really fun, and I'm going to see, oh, hey, Uriah, how's it going? Hey, Randy, nice to see you again. And that we're going to go, and it's going to be really fun. And then they sent me a thing and asked me if I wanted to present an award. I don't know. I said, yeah, I'd love to. I don't know if I'm confirmed or what award that might be. So then these guys, David August, who makes a lot of suits, a lot of Bruce Buffer suits, Connor, they make my suits. And they were making me this dinner jacket and a shirt and a tie and stuff, and it's really cool. And I'm like, it's beautiful, and it's edgy and it's cool, and I'm really excited to wear it. But I'm like, I think I want leather pants. So anyway, I got leather pants made. So maybe I'll have it next. I won't wear it I'll wear it on the Monday after maybe or something, or the Sunday after when we shoot it. Anyways, I'm meandering like fucking crazy today. So I'm looking at the jackets in there, and there are tassels, hundreds and hundreds, maybe more tassels on this jacket. And I was telling them about Bill and how he uses this old school machine and the difference between a drummer and a drum machine. The drummer can play perfect, but he's a human. You hear it. You feel the humanity instead of the drum machine, which is a machine. And Bill uses the struggle of the old machine as a part. The art, that struggle exists in the art itself. The new machine doesn't have that. And I'm telling them, they said, well, all our stuff is hand cut. I said, what do you mean? She goes, like, every one of those tassels I've cut. And she said, I used a laser cutter for a while. I tried it 5-6 days, and it didn't look right. Everything, they would line the tassels up all perfectly. And now I look at hers, and when you look at any individual tassel, each one has little indents in it. So when you at first glance, tassels, but each one is flawed. And they're all slightly different lengths, and something about that made this art so much better. The humanity of it was so much better. And I realized I'm way off whatever I was going here, but now I'm realizing the difference between the mechanical and the human of the art. And I realize in fighting, we have got very mechanical. And, it's back to what Bruce was saying about the creating individual. The mechanical of how the doctrine of MMA has been developed. It's so mechanical. Do this, train this way. That allows that human element to be artistic around it. So all of a sudden McGregor comes in. All of a sudden Tony is fighting the way Tony Ferguson is fighting. Stephen Thompson comes in and brings some retro and adds the human element. And it's all there's so much more. There's so many more of these human fighters, less mechanical men and more creative humans that we're seeing fighting and succeeding. John Jones, of course, was way on the front of that. Demetrius Johnson is a perfect blend of the execution but the art. But there's something there. There's something in there. Seeing the difference of the tattoo done by the human hand, listening to the drummer instead of the drum machine, seeing the tassels cut by the human hand instead of the laser cutter, and then seeing the art, the Cub Swanson, the artist. And Cub Swanson is fighting Artem Lobov. Artem Lobov, if he's too mechanical, that's how Cub will beat him. He's going to need to adapt. And in his last fight against Ishihara, he was very, very good. If you have the idea that you think that Artem Lobov sucks because you don't like him, you not liking him and him sucking are not the same thing. He doesn't suck. He's a very talented fighter. Cub's taken him real seriously, as he should. And I'm actually very excited about that fight. But that's a whole conversation for another day, rankings and matchups and stuff. We'll talk about that another time. But if you're watching and listening, if you've got any thoughts or ideas for this on that human element that I'm talking about, the tassels, the tattoos, the drum machine, and fighting and art of any kind, please send me a DM or reach out to me. I'd love to carry this conversation. There's something interesting where we're going here, and this is not resolved. If you put up, Chase, if you put fighting is about fighting and you tweet me at Robin Black MMA and you put hashtag fighting is about fighting, because we don't think fighting is about Twitter beefs, and we don't think fighting is about the rankings, and we don't think fighting is about pay-per-view buys. Fighting is about fighting. If you put fighting is about fighting in there on Twitter, I will follow you every time. If I do not, there's a 1 in 500 where I miss it, then do it again, please, and I apologize. And then I'll follow you so you can DM me. I cannot respond to all the DMs. It's not humanly possible now. I get like 100 a week. And if I took those 4 or 5 hours, that's 5 hours I have to remove from breakdowns, and I just can't do it. I'm run out of time. I'm 80 hours a week now, and it's required to keep this volume of work up that we're doing, so I can't respond to all of them. That's just the reality. I'm sorry. But I will read them all. I read every fucking DM I get, every single one of them. But if you've got any thoughts for me about this mechanical versus human art, I'd love to hear it. If you've got any books or any recommendations, even a blogger or a website or something that somehow dips their toe into this, because it was so blatant in front of my face between Bill the Tattoo Artist and then Call and Response, who throw them a follow on Instagram, by the way. They're really brilliant people. And like I said, I paid retail. They didn't ask me. This is not a deal. I was just moved by their art. And then the drum machine. Sean Dalton is a friend of mine. He was in The Trues. He sent me a text yesterday. I'm going to reach out to him after this today and talk to him about drummers and drum machines and try to get more deeper into this, because we're going to go somewhere with this. And where we are, our understanding of this dichotomy, we're having a goal of in 2 years to have a real understanding of this. Not to write a thing or to do a breakdown where we incorporate this now. This is something that's a long-term thinking that where we're going. And I thank you for if you get involved with me in that conversation. I really do. Okay, a couple more, Chase. How are we doing for time?
Almost at 90 minutes.
Almost at 90 minutes. God, so much of this is nonsense. And I mean, by so much, I mean especially that political stuff. I'm not resolved on the answers to any of that, but I am trying to take an observational position instead of arguing with either side. Take an observational position of what's happening in the dynamic of two people who will not listen to each other and cannot convince each other of anything. And that's relevant in everything. It's not just politics or Eddie and Brian or, science and conspiracy theories or anything. This is going on everywhere. People are digging in and then defending ideas that they are convinced of, that they've been, reconvinced of thousands of times. So we can't win by choosing either side. Maybe there's some way we can win by stepping back and observing or giving them feedback that isn't arguing. Because we can't just keep getting mad at each other. We can't just keep getting mad and being sure that 50% of everybody's really stupid. We can't do that. Well, how's that ever going to work out? Just looking around, half the world, you and almost half the world know everything, and these other people, how could they be so stupid? We can't, that's not going to work. This is a nice compliment from Chris Gunn, but maybe there's something to this. The hashtag Ask Robin Black paradox. Inspired by his breakdowns, but want to sit around and watch them all day. Hashtag fighting is about fighting. That is a very big compliment. And a couple other people have told me that they were inspired by things, which is a really huge compliment. I don't think when I set out to go and study fighting and do analysis of fighting and do breakdowns and then whatever this show is now, which just is it just became this thing. Well, I don't know what it is. It's really fun. I really like it. But I don't think I set out to inspire anybody. But if anybody was inspired by me working, that is an enormous compliment. Like that is just, I'm going to just soak it in for a second. So if you're listening on iTunes and it's silent for a second, please bear with me. I'm just soaking it in. Like somebody else and their path I look at people doing things and I'm inspired by their work, that I might do that to Chris or somebody else. That's wild. That's wild. And that is a kind of you feel suddenly a feeling of responsibility when you really drink it in. Like, what if I'm leading you the wrong way or something? Or what if so I don't want to think too much about that. Suddenly I got off onto a scary point. It's like, well, if there were, maybe there's 20 Chris's. Well, what if, I want to be pretty damn sure where we're going is of value to you if I'm inspiring you. And so then I start thinking, well, what are we doing? We are studying the martial arts. We are using it we're doing it because we love the art and the artists, but we're also looking for lessons in how the study is done, how the learning takes place, how the fight goes, how battle happens, how performance is improved, how growth is achieved. And then we're applying, in this show, if this is a show, I don't know what this is, we are applying them to our lives. I think I'm okay with somebody coming along on that ride. I don't think there's much risk here that I'm going the wrong way. There's a million choices in the world, but studying the martial arts, which has been done forever, with the goal of self-understanding and ultimately growth, I think we're going down a trail that has been blazed for us for thousands of years, and I think it's one that's worth going down. So I'm okay with that, and actually super excited. And thank you for the enormous compliment. But hey, the other part. So because it's so cool, you just want to sit around and watch them all day? Nope, we're not good with that. Nope. I am flattered if you watch or listen to this show and you're doing other things a lot of the time. That's cool. Love that. And if you listen to this and then we were talking about a certain breakdown and you say, I'm going to go watch the Du Ho Choi versus Cub Swanson breakdown that you did, totally. And thank you. But then get your ass up and do some shit. Then go do stuff. Because inspired is supposed to be inspired to do X or inspired to change X. It is not meant to be like this good, warm, fuzzy feeling I get when I see this guy who's so enthusiastic and loves his life and he's doing this thing and he's on this journey and I'm going to sit around and watch him. That is awesome, but only for a little while. Then you got to go do some stuff. You got to go do some stuff. And the biggest, the thing that I would be thrilled is if you went and did some martial arts. That would be the next step. And if you're watching this or listening to this and you don't train, just go to some place and train some martial arts. Roll around a little bit or climb something or hit something. It'll change your life. It will. Or you can go and take a gymnastics class or yoga, anything. Go move your body because the ideas and somebody having a conversation with you where maybe some of their ideas are interesting, or they open up an idea that you're going to then go and read about or think about or work out on more. That's awesome. But it'll go deeper if you go and exercise your body after, move your body. Or do yoga while you're listening to this. That would be really cool. That would be super cool. Anyways, thank you for the compliment. That's really nice. A few more. Plexium says, Connor's left hand, do you think it's vicious mostly because of technique or power? Okay. When you think about not sipping, you gulp, and when you think about not gulping, you sip. It's strange. Technique is power. If he didn't know how to throw a punch, he couldn't hurt anybody. Conor McGregor wouldn't hurt anybody if he'd never learned how to throw a punch. He would just do what most people do, which is kind of fall off balance, step behind, step forward, and punch. And then they're shocked. I don't know if you've ever seen this happen, but then someone's shocked to hit somebody and they don't fall down and they don't instantly, they're shocked, but you don't generate any power. Technique is power. And even musculature and efficiency of using musculature and stuff, that is technique still. And technique was used to build that. Technique was used to build that body and build the connection between your upper body and your lower body and build the connection between the ground and the opponent. All of it is technique. Everything is technique. Power is a result. Power is a result of technique. There's a real misconception about this idea that power, that's God-given. Don't be ridiculous. That's just one of those things people say. Oh, man, power's the last to go. See, Dan Henderson. Really? Because I'll grab you 100 other 45 fighters, and power was the first to go. We say these things that we've always said because we've always said them. Oh, man, power's God-given. Oh, it's something you can't teach. Bullshit. Power is entirely developed through technique and the efficiency of which you use your body, which is built through technique. It's all technique, all of it. Conor McGregor hits with so much power, and then, that will be counteracted by people say, oh, man, he always had that. Cool. That means he always had a high level of expression. Power is expressed. Power is not a thing. Power is expressed. Power is expressed through technique and through the efficiency of your body and the actual physical makeup of your body, which is built through more technique. It's all technique, all of it. And there'll even be good high-level coaches who will say, oh, yeah, you can't teach that. You can teach that. As soon as they believe they can't teach that, then they can't teach that. And as soon as the fighter believes he can't learn that, then he can't learn that. You can. You 100% can. And it's anybody who will just look at the science of it will see the connection between the way the upper and the lower body is connected, the way that the musculature is used and built, the smoothness of the body. It's all how it's trained. It's all how it's developed. You can, and we've touched on this before, but it'll definitely come up again. There is a hostility or a conflict between the people who build athletic performance and the people who teach martial arts. It's ongoing. It's out there. The people who teach martial arts, they many times, many of them now go to a default of you don't need this. A lot of them do. Trust me. Even the ones, some who say, "Oh no, I tell people to go, do strength and conditioning." Some of them do not. They tell you need to rest. They tell you need to do jujitsu more. They tell you need to be in the gym more. This is an ongoing thing. It's there. I know it from seeing it. I know it from seeing it firsthand. Now, what is said is different out in the public. Some of I tell them they got to get their runs in. They don't. They tell them, be in here. You've only got 5 more weeks. I want you to do your 22 hours a week with me. Now, sometimes it was done, they've taken that stance because they can't control the resting periods. They can't control the strength and conditioning person who has their own agenda. And then as a result, they have overtrained fighters, or they have under-rested fighters, or they have injured fighters, or whatever. You solve that problem. You don't just say, okay, then we're not doing that. You solve the problem. And how we use the study of the martial arts to as an analogy, if I'm doing can openers, I'm cranking your neck, works forever. I'm in a guard, I can't open it. Okay, I have an answer, can't open. You have an answer, you armbar me. I don't stop doing can openers. I find the answer to the threat, which is the armbar. Same thing. There are some negative side effects in the development of how we use strength and conditioning with the skill development. We don't just stop doing strength and conditioning, we find the answer. How do we stop the armbar in this case? How do we stop the injuries, or how do we stop the overtraining? You find it. Matt Hume has found it, and he became such a high-level strength and conditioning specialist himself with his other skills that he understood how to periodize DJ, who rests more than most fighters, but trains at a higher intensity and structures everything differently. That's the answer. So some of those coaches who say do not go train with, whatever, Jeff Gervitz is and Paul Hines are my strength and conditioning coaches in Toronto at Bang Fitness. There's John Chamberg in Montreal, and there's Shara in Edmonton, and there's a number of very good ones in Canada. And the States, there's dozens and dozens. But you don't just say don't train with them. You figure out how to make it work in there. But the people who say don't train with them, some of them will say, yeah, you can't teach power. You cannot teach power. Well, you can't, because you've limited your fighter's ability to express his body by not building it. You've plateaued him. So anyways, the long and the short, this is a whole other conversation, a fascinating one. It's a lot. We started a lot of really interesting conversations today. We've also started a couple of dumb ones probably too. So is it power or is it technique? Technique is the result of power. Power is the result of technique. It's all technique, all of it. And again, the building of the strength and flexibility and elasticity and all of these things of the body, that's real. That's part of it. But that is built through technique as well. If you go train with Jeff or Shara or John Chamberg or whoever, they're using knowledge and technique to build your body. So it's all technique. And they build the body in appropriate ways to express this. You can't just do arm curls and hope that you punch harder. It doesn't work that way. Okay. How are we doing for time, Chase? 140. 140. So I've got a really good question and there was one last week that we wanted to circle back to, and I remember it now. It was Tony and Habib, which we are absolutely positively going to start with next time. Okay, Chase? And this one as well, we're going to go into early because it's fascinating, but this is a 30-minute conversation, which I love. Michael O'Brien sent it. We'll get to it next week. How far do you think the bantamweight division with Cody, TJ, and Dom will bring fighting forwards? I like the way you're thinking, brother. And that we're going to talk in depth about that. Just imagine if Michael Jordan, who was like his guy? Scottie Pippen? How do I know that? I can even picture what he looks like. What if there was a third guy of that level? Wayne Gretzky had, Yari Curry and Mark Messier and that defenseman, Paul Coffey. See, I know shit. I know some shit about other sports. At least I know their names. That's actually weird. That's back, but those are all back in years before I was in this level of a deep dive of one thing. So you can still remember stuff. I got kicked in the head, and I still remember things. But imagine, so did Wayne Gretzky make those guys better? Yeah, probably. But they all made each other better. Now, put them up. Who was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson? So those guys, when they were against each other, would make each other better. Imagine if there were like 3 of that level and they got to circle back and prepare for each other for 4 or 5 months and then fight, gather information. And these guys will probably all fight each other a couple times. That's killer. We'll get way into that next week. And we'll talk about Tony and Khabib. By then, I will have done the breakdown. So I have 7 days from today. And in that time, about probably 30 to 40 hours of my week will be spent on that breakdown. So I'll have a lot more to give you then. And it's pretty exciting. Tomorrow is a family day in Canada. It's a day off. I'm going to come in and do 2 3 to 4 hour shifts of work on that with a workout in the middle, which will get me ready for when Jeff comes in on Tuesday. We'll have 3 days we can work on building it. And it's going to be cool. Khabib and Tony, very excited. Unless something changes. There's always the possibility that some other thing comes in from the UFC or something, and I have to allot that time somewhere else. But otherwise, it's going to happen. Okay. How is it different for you to watch a friend fight than someone you don't know personally? Okay, that's interesting. There's 2 questions left. The other one is, why do you think it is that fighters have trouble with retiring and feel the itch to return? I feel like there's a lot to talk about in that one. Josh Thompson and Josh Koscheck both fought last night, and really they don't want to be there, I don't think. I really don't. But they do. They still want to be there. You know what I mean? It's it's a weird one to look at. The guys who really, really want to fight, it's all they love. And it's, Vitor will be one of these guys. It's just like he'll want to, he's still in his younger 30s, which is shocking when you think about how long he's been around. You got the internet there, Chase? Yeah, I'm just curious how old Vitor is. It's however old he is, he's shockingly young. But he'll be one of these guys who just, this is what they do, it's what they are. When they just like, even Anderson's a great example. He really wants to fight. He really wants to train. He really wants to be a martial artist. He's 41, I believe. But he just wants to. He really wants to. And if physically he can, I'm for it. 39. Vitor's 39. But you picture young Vitor like blasting across the cage and you're like, that's so long ago. I'm for that. If they are really, it's everything to them. I relate to that. And there's a lot of people that their thing is their thing. They love it and they just don't want to give it up. But then there's some other people, it's like they like being a fighter. They like a lot of the things that come with it. But when they go to the gym, they don't work like they did before. And they know what they know, and that's what they know and stuff. And I watched some Bellator last night, and I'm happy to see guys who love what they do still do it. I'm just not 100% sure that they do, because Josh Koscheck, and I love Josh Koscheck, and we had him in here, and he was a very sweet guy to be around, and really, I love watching that guy fight. He was a part of those years where fighting really started, really took root in a way that was going to be stable in North America. But he was like, oh yeah, BJ should come over to Bellator. They'll give him some easier fights. And Josh Thompson, he didn't want to fight Michael Chandler. I do not blame him. And Koscheck, they had Paul Daly and he got injured, and he probably got injured. But, there's different levels of injury if you need the money or, when you really wanted that fight. Because Josh Koscheck did not go to Bellator to fight Paul Daly, And I'm with him on that, and I support him on that. Josh Koscheck went to Bellator because somebody would give him like $300,000 or $400,000 to still do that thing he's really good at. And we're not going to get crazy. Give me some guy with like 7 losses, But at that stage, when you're like, let's go, we're still fighting, but it's not the same level. It's not. This won't be quite as hard, and I'll, let's go do it. You're done. You're done. You shouldn't. You can do what you want. You can do whatever you want, but you're not going to go in with that same focus. As soon as you're like, yeah, I want to fight, but I don't want to like fully fight. I want these easier things, you know. You can get hurt, but it's their life. It's their life. But fighting is so cool. It's so alive with, it's just so real. A lot of life, and it's something you learn. A lot of life in learning in any moment. I was talking about tassels and tattoos, and is being present in the moment. I know you're present right now. We're all present, but really, like being present in the moment. And fighting is you put yourself in a situation where you're present. You are living that moment, and I think that's one that people want to keep experiencing. And I think the things that come with it, being celebrated and being in this action and this thing. And some people, they love training and they love studying. Some of them love the having something scheduled which you must give your body and mind focus around. It's mandatory. It's coming. It gives you structure. And some do it because they want the money. And I don't know. Everybody's different. But Mullen said it best to me once he wasn't talking about me, but he was talking about somebody else or any fighter. He's like, one day you will be retired from fighting or whatever, anything in life. One day, if we admit we will not do this one day, would you admit one day you will not fight? Yes, I do. I know one day I will not be fighting. I'll be too old or whatever. Okay. That day, do you think you'll still have the fire to fight? It's like, yeah, I'll probably have it forever. So what that means is the fire to fight is in and of itself always going to be there, so it cannot be the only reason because it's always going to be there. So it's always there. It's there now, and it's going to be there when you're not fighting. Should you be fighting? That's a valid question. Realizing that the desire to fight is in and of itself not reason enough to necessarily fight. But I'm a very big freedom of choice and liberties type of person. It's dangerous. My wife is texting. It's dangerous to eat insane amounts of sugar, but you're free to do it. It's dangerous to smoke cigarettes, but you're free to do it. It's your life. It's your fucking life. You can do what you want with your life. And I support Anderson Silva's desire to, as a millionaire, a successful millionaire with many other options, to go fight. I do. And I really also respect the shit out of Brendan Schaub when he told me to my face. He was like, Joe was right when they had that famous thing where Joe told him why he shouldn't be fighting. He said he was right, and I realized that I had other choices and I could do it. And so I did. And I respect that because it's his life. And now he's got this cool life. Brendan's a cool dude. Why have I ended 2 weeks straight talking about Schaub? And then so we're going to talk about this for a long time too. Every time somebody retires or comes out of retirement, we're going to think about it. And I think a lot of these questions today, does a fighter benefit? Are they motivated more than they are if they didn't lose? Is it more harmful to the career to be this? Why do you think they want to fight? I think all of these things we're talking about, analyzing people, ideas, what their thought processes are, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we've studied. But I think a real powerful thing in all of these types of questions, and a valuable thing, is empathy. Is understand whenever we're looking at anyone, we're looking at Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw, and the way that they're interacting. We're looking at the two guys in the office here, and we're looking at if you can really put yourself in that person, put yourself in that position. Why would Anderson Silva want to fight? Well, try to be Anderson Silva. Because you get a lot out of doing this. You'll learn a lot about, how you interact with other people and how they interact with you. You put yourself in, why would I want to fight? Well, my life, I have children and money and I'm famous. What would motivate me to fight? Why would I do that? And then you put yourself in the people arguing that 50% of the world that disagrees with the other 50%. Why would they believe that? They can't just be stupid. They're not stupid. Wait a second. Why do they believe that? Why do I believe this? And you question it. and you ask, would it be better or worse to lose? How can what would it be like if I had dedicated my whole life to something and then I failed? What choice? And really, truly put yourself in those situations. You learn a lot. Force yourself to talk it out. You learn a lot about yourself and about what it is to be other people. Everyone you meet in the world is their own person. You're seeing it through this thing, and they're seeing it through those things. And it's being processed by, you know what I mean? So that's a person. There's a weird thing I see sometimes. It's very common, apparently, where you look on the internet, which is this big cesspool of anything, and let's say it's on, something about, I'm trying to draw a random guy who's doing well. So let's say Stipe Miocic. I'm just randomly pulling Stipe Miocic. And somebody says, Stipe Miocic is a fraud. And you will see that, Rogan is a fraud. Brian Callen, This is a common reaction that people have. Do you know why that is? It is. I was going to say it's fascinating. That you will determine for yourself if it is fascinating. I'm fascinated by it. It's called imposter syndrome. When you cannot look at Anderson Silva or Joe Rogan or Stipe Miocic or anybody, you can't look at them and understand that they are a person just like you. They're just a person. Through their choices, the things they've learned, and the things that they've learned on top of the things that they've learned, have brought them to the point that they can do this thing. And they're just a person who learned a bunch of stuff. When you look at that, and not you, but the people who suffer from imposter syndrome, they look at that and they cannot think that through a series of learning things and making adaptations and learning new ideas and learning new systems to view the world and train themselves and all the layers of shit, that one day they too could be Anderson Silva. And that's true. I maybe wouldn't be the greatest fighter of all time, but you could be a guy who does these things. Every person could do that. But because those things are so multi-layered, when they picture themselves as Anderson Silva, they immediately feel like a fraud. You feel like a fraud. I could not do this. I mean, if I sat at this desk, somebody with imposter syndrome would be like, picture themselves sitting here, they'd just be making up stupid shit. And they would be uncomfortable, and they wouldn't have anything to draw on, and they, figure you just make shit up because it wouldn't have been based on layers of learning and thinking and trying to rethink and being wrong and being right and not being scared to try and all of those things. Eventually, you're that person. But if you look at someone and go, fuck, Dana White's a fraud. You just think if you were there, you would feel like a fraud. It's called imposter syndrome. It's a real thing. It's a fascinating thing. It's a lot of it going on in the world. Anytime now, from this point on, when you look and you see, and purposefully avoid comments of things, purposefully avoid that. It's a sad reflection on society when you see a lot of that. But you'll see it because it's part of the world. And when you do, or you ever see somebody chatting, it's Twitter or whatever, and they say, Luke Thomas is a fraud. That's an expression of how they feel about themselves if put into that situation. And that's sad because all that they would do to get to that situation would be a bunch of incremental growth. Learn a thing, which becomes a thing, and then you learn about what else to learn, and you try this thing, and you fail, and then that teaches you something else. And over the course of weeks and months and years, they would do what Luke Thomas does, or they would do what Stipe does. It would be a long road. There's lots of reasons to quit, and there's many other things you could do instead. You go, fuck, that's a lot of work. You know how much Stipe's worked? I really like watching 50 series at the same time on Netflix. Well, that's going to be your life. Go have it. You can do that. But if you really wanted to be somebody who fought in the UFC or was a doctor or had a cool family or whatever it is you wanted to do, will require a certain amount of learning and then incremental growth. Learn about something, which teaches you about something, which opens a new question, which you got a new answer. And one day, before you know it, you're Stipe Miocic. And if you look at Stipe and think he's a fraud, he's not a fraud. And that you should reflect that back on yourself. Why do I feel that way? I could be like Stipe Miocic. Maybe he wouldn't be the heavyweight champion because every single heavyweight in the world would like to be the heavyweight champion, and they're not. But you'd get very far with that thinking. Let's end it on this today, because some friends of mine are fighting tonight. How is it different for you to watch a friend fight than someone you don't know personally? It's very different. It's very different. I have anxiety. So, and the other thing is, friend is a fairly open thing, because I have a lot of people that fight now that I've become friends with and attached to. So Alex Ricci is fighting Paul Felder, very tough fight. And Elias is fighting tonight, I forget his opponent's name, Muchante, Cesar Ferreira, who is very good. And he was, my friend Evan Boris, who is a kickboxing coach, he's there to support Alex, and he has also worked with Muchante. So I don't know how that's even going to work for him. That's a real stressful one. It's hard, though. When I fought a couple of times, she came to like 5 of my fights. One, I got taken out on a stretcher, and she read about that on the internet live, on a live thing. I was sad. She was really sad when I called from the ambulance. But she always said, like, people would ask about isn't it hard to watch him get hurt? And she's like, no, I've seen him get punched in the face. Sometimes I want to punch him in the face. But it's hard for me to see him fail, when she knows how much work you put into it and how important it is to you. And that's the hard part. The moments the good moments are still like, oh yeah, dude, yeah. And then the bad ones are like, no. It's just like any other fight. But there's I know how much this means to these guys. And that's hard. That's hard. So I know what she meant. But I feel that way about my favorite fighters all the time. When Cub was fighting Doo Ho Choi, Cub has become a friend. And so I was cheering for him a little more. And he's also my favorite artist, or certainly one of my favorite ever. But Doo Ho Choi is just, I'm just like fascinated by his skills, and I feel some connection to him, because I was talking about Doo Ho Choi, showing a breakdown. He was my #1 prospect pick when we were commentating his fights in Japan, in Deep. Me and Ramdeen called like fight number 3 and 5 and 6, and So, and I was like, damn it, this guy is amazing. There's something special, something different here. And it's in his mind as much as is with most of these guys and women and athletes and artists. Ultimately, it's what's going on in there to a great degree. But something was very special. And then I called Sean Shelby when I was managing Nick Denise, so I'd have reason to call Sean Shelby rather than just to disturb a busy man. And I was like, dude, you gotta fucking check out this Doo Ho Choi in Japan. And he was like, oh yeah, we're aware. And then I did a breakdown of him as my my prospect to watch, which was my biggest breakdown ever. Like 200,000 people watched it. And back then, nobody even knew never even heard of Robin's breakdowns or any kind of breakdowns. They just weren't out there. There was a fight study done by Lawrence Kenshin and BJJ Scout and Jack Slack, but there were no breakdowns. They didn't exist. Dan hadn't done one for a year after that, and all the good guys that are out there that do some type of work like that, it didn't exist. There was Jack, who I purposefully do not read or watch any analysis right now. I go out of my way. Every now and again, I will check out Dan and John Gooden because they're friends and I really respect them. But one in 50 of their things maybe. I purposefully don't. I don't want to use the same language, and I don't want to take somebody else's idea. I want them to take my idea. And I want them to do it, and I want them to not that these guys will, but somebody else, wherever else that trickles down, I want them to take it, and I want them to build on it. And so I don't really watch any, but every now and again I got to read Jack because there's something in the tone. There's like, I've never met Jack. I've done things, interacted with him on the internet, but there's something in the tone where I feel his love. I feel connected to that guy. And Lawrence Kenshin is a very good friend. Again, it'll be 1 out of 50 these days. As much I love the man's work, and I love the man. He is a great guy. He's not a public guy, but I know who he is. I get to train with him sometimes, and he's a good friend and a good person and a great analyst. But I'm wanting to be on my own journey right now, which is how I feel like we're ending up in this weird podcast talking about philosophy, is because I'm going down a path that is not the same one as those guys, and I'm happy about that. I'm very happy about that. There's great work out there. There's a lot of people doing great work. That MMA awards thing that I was talking about, that I'm going to, that I'm now very excited for. Whoever wins out of Chael, Dan, Dominic, or Brian, come on, those guys are awesome. These guys are awesome. And I've worked with Brian and Dan and Chael. Dom's the only one I haven't done some kind of thing with. Although I've spent a little time with him and watched him. He's very smart, man. But whichever one of those guys wins, I'm going to be thrilled for them. And it's going to be a really fun party, and I'm going to try to buy them all a round of drinks. I think we have one more of these before that before that awards thing happens. So I'll think more about like those guys and talk about how great they are then. But yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time watching. Back to your question, I'm gonna have a hard time watching Alex and Elias fight tonight. They're dear friends, and I want them to win. And that's the hard part, I think, is and why I don't bet on fighting, because I don't like having. I want the art to just unfold. I just want it to happen. I want it to happen, to be a part of it and analyze it and see what it tastes like and what it feels like and how tactile it is and all of these things. And I don't want to be invested in a result, and I can't help it. When Cub Swanson fights Artem Lobov, I will be cheering for Cub Swanson. He is my favorite fighter, and he's a friend. And when Elias fights, I'm going to cheer for Elias. And so having that desired outcome changes it. It makes it a discomfort for me that I don't like as much. But it's also real, and real's good. When your team, it's weird. I'm leaving off on a weird thought again that we don't have an answer to. When your team is playing, or your fighter is fighting, or your favorite whatever is doing something, that you have an anxiety for it. I'm going to think about that. We're going to talk about that in the future. But it's been really fun, and thank you for hanging in with me, and thank you for encouraging me. It's really, really, really fun, and I appreciate you a lot. Blackout.